I'm Celia Leverton. I live at Whistler's Ridge Permaculture Farm at Franklin. Look, I'm not sure where my passion for regen ag came from. I originally, I farmed conventionally for many years, from my teens right through to after I had children, but there was always something missing, and that sort of led me to permaculture. And I think it was the people care side of it that I was seeing a lot of my peers and family having lots of relationship issues and from the pressure of farming, and that led me to permaculture, and then that sort of scaled up into regen ag. You know, I've got children and I've got a deep love of farming, and I was really passionate about seeing the country, seeing the farmland regenerate rather than degrade, which was a lot of what I was seeing at the time. I also felt that the people care side of it was really important, and also that the farmers needed to be profitable and to be getting a yield for their effort, so that they could sustain it in the long term. We had some uni students come just prior to COVID, and we did some water infiltration tests. They dug some holes and we counted worms, and they took some samples away to be tested. The water infiltration tests, we did it in 3 different sites. One was in an area that we were rehabilitating after it had been cultivated and resown. There was a set stocked paddock, which is this one, where the pet sheep, and it was a secure paddock that sheep and goats couldn't get out of, so it was sort of set stocked for many months of the year. And then we had an area that we'd been running a trial for regenerative grazing, recovery-based grazing. The water infiltration test on the area that had been cultivated, we gave up at 6 minutes. It just wasn't infiltrating at all, and so that was cultivated in 2017, spring 2017. So it was 2.5 years that we just actually had to leave it. It had come back with annual weeds and thistles because we got 100 mil of rain on it just after it was sown. So it was compacted. It was capped, the soil surface. This paddock here, that's got great ground cover, but had been set stocked, so it had a degree of woody weeds in it. That took 4 minutes 42 seconds to infiltrate. And then the areas that we'd been trialling doing recovery-based grazing, that took 17 seconds. So it was 6 minutes versus 4 minutes 42 seconds in the set stocked versus 17 seconds in the regenerative grazing. So that to me was enough, and we've rolled it out across the whole farm now. So we've got some steers in, and we've stripped the area that was very degraded that we'd had cultivated. We've grazed right through in the last month with high animal impact. You know, the animals packed closely together, and now they'll have a 9 to 12 month recovery period. And yeah, the hope is, well, the experience is, what we've seen in the past is that it will actually come back with perennial grasses. So fingers crossed on that. So, and the sheep and all the things that keep getting out, they've gone, and we're the set stock paddock now will also be strip grazed in the future. So this area, this paddock's been set stocked, and this is Lola. It's always had really good ground cover. The Wallabies move in June every year, so we're about a month late, taping this to actually record the soil surface. While it's covered, there's no active decomposition in there. Whereas down in that paddock, there's fungus. There's white fungus. That's really clear where the decomposing litter. One of the things that they that indicates landscape function is what's going on the soil surface, and that's a critical area. There's no decomposing, but I imagine next year, once this is grazed and the wallabies are off it, that there will be decomposition on the soil surface, and that's really what we're going for. And that once you get that, there's slight or there's moderate, but once you get that moderate, that's what starts the nutrient cycling. So that's the goal. So, and you can see it down in that paddock where we've grazed it with the highest animal impact. This was the paddock that we sowed, that took 6 minutes for the water to infiltrate, or 6 minutes plus. It hadn't moved, so we gave up on it. So it was sown in September 2017 and we grazed it in March, April. April, May 2020. So we'd had 100 mil of rain on it just after it was sown, and all the soil, everything just washed down the hill. Seed, it was heartbreaking. I shed a tear, I'll be honest. And it's just come back, annual weeds, blackberries, thistles. Yeah, it's horrible. So we hope, but there was enough in it after that period that we run the cows in strips, and then like a ladder, we give them a rung every day, or 2 or 3 times a day, so that they'll actually get there's enough hoof action, enough animal impact that they'll actually push. They'll eat what they want and they'll push the rest down onto the soil to feed the soil biology and get that soil surface interaction going. That should increase the biology and the biological action in the soil. So they've smashed down a lot of the thistles, but the aim is that the perennial grasses will actually outcompete the thistles. The thistles are quite sooky, that they're a management indicator. So come back next year and we'll see that this is going to be grass. That's the plan. So yeah, it's been pretty hammered by wallabies. We've just put up a wallaby fence along one. We've just still got one more section to do. June every year we just get taken out by wallabies completely. So we're sort of surrounded on 4 sides by bush. This was originally an orchard, and that was why we had it cultivated and re-sown, was because there was massive holes that we were falling in, and I actually want to do some tiny houses on wheels at the top of the hill here for an Airbnb for additional farm income. But the holes were too big, they were dangerous, so that was why we had it cultivated. But in hindsight, I should have just got a rototiller or something like that, or something with a blade and pushed the holes in. Hindsight's good, but yeah, so it was an apple orchard up until 20 odd years ago. So we pushed the trees out because there was too many. So these are Dexters. We bought them from out Richmond Way and have just finished them, and they're heading off to be processed next week. We put them into these areas when the grass is fully recovered. That is, it's got, actually this fence isn't on, that's all right, I'm just going to sniff it. It's so when it looks like an ungrazed plant and it's got 2 or 3 yellowing leaves, which they'll eat the green out of it and then they'll push the dry onto the soil. And then we move them onto fresh pasture when their gut feel dictates. So the animal tells us when they need more grass, and the grass tells us when it's recovered enough to put them on. And while these little black steers are a lovely solid type, as is this little red one, the big one at the back there, she's a poorer type. So even though they're all Dexters, there's actually different phenotypes, they call it, within each breed, and you'll see it with Angus or Hereford or Murray Greys or whatever. Some are just longer and leggier, and some will just do well on fresh air and scenery. So it's those lower energy ones that you want, because they obviously take less to run, and the longer leggier ones, which have a lot of them have been bred for the feedlots, and they're just not as suited to a grass-based system, and they also don't like being squashed up together. These are really, really happy to be squashed up tight together. Yeah, so they're ready for a new strip. So I run them in strips like in a ladder, and then give them a rung each few hours. It can be as labour intensive or less as you like. You can give them a strip for a day, you can give them a strip for 2 hours. Just depends what your motivation is, but the more often that they're moved and the higher the impact on the ground, the better, the more pushing down onto the soil that you get, like here where they've trampled this down here. That there's that much trampled onto the soil, and it's that foot action of them. They'll eat the green, this, and then they'll push the dry, this down and onto the soil surface. And that's what feeds the biology in the soil. So, and gets that nutrient cycling. But they're keen for a move, so yeah, see that's their gut fill there, just in front of their hip. So it's here on their left side. You can just see slightly concave on this one. This is my favourite. So they're ready for a move. So 20% of them, when they've got that slightly concave. Margaret there, even though that's on her wrong side, that's her right side, she always looks hungry. So she wouldn't be one that I'd breed from because she's not of the type that I'd like. Whereas this red one, she's never hungry. She's a really low energy, really good doing cow. So yeah, and the rest of them are the steers. So yeah, so it's totally doable on a small scale. It's, you don't need hundreds of animals. We started with 5 and the grass was getting too far ahead of us, so I bought in another 2, but it was only ever to work out how many stock I could carry for the year. It was a trial. So, and that's why they're not staying, because until the paddock out the back that we cultivated, until that regains health, that we don't have enough to keep animals all year on. So yeah, it's always been prepared to reduce your stock numbers to look after your land, because that's the most profitable thing to do. So we haven't fertilised or used any pesticides here at all in the 17 odd years we've been here. We've never actually needed to, so we just keep moving the animals, and that gets the soil biology going, which keeps the nutrient cycling and the water infiltrating, and yeah, all happy campers. Oh wow, the Huon's known as the Valley of Rainbows. Yeah. So this is a paddock that it's a hazelnut orchard. Its history is that it was burnt in 2013 when we had the bushfires here, and then it had cows through it, like intensively grazed. It was slashed one year, and then it had the pastured hens through it, and then these cows I just put electric fence around the trees and just strip graze them, like the old ladder thing through there. And this is where it took 17 seconds to infiltrate the water, compared to 6 and 4.5 in the other paddocks. But there's some really good fungal, and a slug. There's really good fungal activity happening here, so which isn't happening in the other paddocks where we haven't regeneratively grazed, with that high animal impact and long recovery period. So here's one I prepared earlier. See that lovely fungus down in there. So once you've got that decomposition happening at the soil surface, it's the soil surface that's really critical. Yeah, it's all. So there's decomposition happening there as well. I had a fantastic mentor. I don't know, it might have been 14 years ago, 12, 14 years ago, I did a course at NRM South, ran holistic planned grazing, I think it was called back then, with Graham Hand. And he's mentored me all through this. So, and it's just, yeah, he runs lots of training online, and I just take a photo and send it to him. So, yeah, it's just all made total sense, and it's just, yeah, it almost felt like the missing piece in the puzzle of, I don't know why I was so adverse to using chemicals. It was before I knew that, before the science was in, but it just felt all wrong. I don't know whether it was motherhood or I don't know what it was. But anyway, it just felt wrong, and so I didn't. We didn't have soil tests done here when we first came because as a single mum, I didn't have any money to put into remediating whatever the problems were. So we just went about moving animals to rectify any issues, and it worked. So, but the key thing is is getting onto a process. It doesn't matter what process you use, what practices you use, as long as you're getting this landscape function going, as long as you're getting that the land is regenerating. So how you get to that, there's many ways touted, but the only way that I've experienced that works is the high animal impact. You know, it's like 1 cow per 3 metres, and then the long recoveries. You know, make sure you've got good grass utilisation, and utilisation is not just what the cow eats, but what they push onto the soil as well, to feed the soil biology. And then you get the long recoveries. And I worked out how long I needed for a recovery period by, we set up these trial areas. I left one for 3 months, one for 6 months, one for 9 months, one for 12, and one for 18, because you want one at each end that doesn't work. And the 3 months was definitely too short. The 18 months was definitely too long. The 6 months was getting closer, but between 9 and 12 is what it needs here. So, and that way you're not relying on experts to tell you what needs doing, that you've actually taken responsibility for what works for you with your management, your animals on your place and your situation. So these safe to fail trials are just, yeah, I think they're really, really liberating. So it sort of takes, it takes responsibility back, that you don't have to deal with agronomists or you know, advisors from the outside. You know, get yourself a mentor for sure, but yeah, do the trials yourself. Yeah, and yeah, and it works. Yeah.
Right.
You're not being very helpful, Lola.
Helping. Helping.
Helping, aren't you? Got your dad.